I just want to name, we have reconcilate. I just want to name the other thing where you try to come up with another possible map, possible it map through which you arrived at the belief. This is probably a Bonkan, and you are going to get a good deal of, or you, you're going to get some cool stuff here and maybe not. I do recommend watching the original video, make an evening of it, you know? It's an hour long. Don't do it while you're scrolling, because then you'll never be able to stick to it. Make an evening of it, invite some friends over, pizza and beer, and put it up on the big screen. Everybody gets a plate, a notebook, a beer, and a pen. Pause it, discuss it, really, make a proper event of it. Or if it's somebody's birthday, then even better. But just don't let people talk over me, because I didn't, and don't let people laugh over me either, because you're not here, I don't really pause for laughter. So be sure to pause it. What I would recommend probably is that you watch the video first, know when to pause it, when like the funniest bits are, and the most genius things, and the discussion points, and also the things that I'm wrong about, the things that you're like, that was nonsense what Eris just said, right? Identify all of that. Make a proper. Everyone's gonna love you, dude. Everybody is going. If you're wondering how to make friends, let's say you've moved to a new area, don't do a housewarming party. People have done that. Do an Eris watching party. I don't love that I'm the center of attention, but it's maybe these. All right, we spent a long time on that, and you probably had to keep pausing it because people were probably laughing the entire time, too loudly. So reconcilate is when you try to find two opposing its in your system, in your system. Is that what we're gonna call the mind, the system? Oh, should we call it the shit stem? Ooh, the shit stem. That's not bad actually. But no, we don't want to be mean all the time. All right. The sit stem, right? So in the sit stem, composed by a whole bunch of its, more like shit stem, and we do want people to say that. Every time somebody talks about the sit stem, someone else should go more like the shit stem. Okay, so I haven't eaten. I did have a bit of whiskey to get up the courage to go to the laundromat, and I'm probably here avoiding going to the laundromat. So, reconcilate is when you try to find. There should be opposing its in the sit stem, but you try to find two that are relevant to the question at hand, that both are delivering on the question at hand, but that don't actually work together. And then that I explained well in the previous video, so I should not repeat that now. The other thing is what we want to name now, which is an alt path, an alternative path to the belief. Knowing that you're a human brain, and knowing that a thing can be true without, and knowing that you can feel like a thing is true, and that you can think that you have evidence for a thing without neither of those being accurate. You have to imagine another possible route. This is our imagination skepticism thing, right? We have empiricism and reason. This is the imagination skepticism, the is of Eris. Okay. So alt it. There's reconcile it. There's we do, so we used to call them voice maps, but as we transition from calling the mechanisms voices to calling them its, an it map. Alternate map. There you go. Alternate map. All right. So reconcile it when you try to identify two opposing its that maybe shouldn't be opposing, and then you do the stuff that we talked about in the other thing. And then what I just said, alternate map, is supposing that evidence didn't lead to your conclusion. Supposing you know the first thing about the mind. What mechanisms could have led to that conclusion while not, despite the evidence, actually? So, what tendencies, what compulsions do we have that would get us to that belief, even if there was evidence to the contrary, or without evidence at all, or at least without evidence in favor? Okay, great. An alternate map. Oh, I love that. Alternate map. And then what's the other thing? Reconcile it. Okay, so all of that's brilliant stuff. And then just since we're talking and since I started recording and since this is the second video, there's one more thing I do want to talk about actually. Let me just write the date since you got it. If you just want to see the bonus content of this thing, go away now. But if you want the secret surprise content, 24 Albert 02 Brody. 24 Albert 02 Brody. Ooh, how productive. I fucking hate that. I have these EDays, right? Where I don't do anything. I talked about it in the previous video. And this is where I get my ideas by just observing. Typically it's by observing TV characters and ruminating and about personal situations. And just letting things play over and over and over. And sometimes I get an idea. So here's an idea that I got yesterday. All right, we're going to add that now. Slip or slide. I'm not sure yet. Slip. We'll put it in marker as well. Slide. Okay. In a video in the Voice Theory, It Theory playlist. Not 23. 24. Albert. 02 Bravo. We talked about the call mechanism and the spill mechanism. So we don't know really what that looks like or even how to describe it or what it is, or just really got a label for it now. But the call mechanism is that presumably there's some way by which an it in the mind can send out a call to other its. Like, for instance, when the Ajing it system, so there's an it that's like, we need to justify, we need to defend whatever the last thing we said was. Then I feel like he has to put out a call somehow. I really don't know what that looks like, but put out a call so that other its that might have good justifications, but that weren't triggered, slapped by the situation immediately, they get called by the slapper who gets slapped by the needing of a justification. So there's one guy who gets slapped by a moment where you need a justification, and then he calls out to the other guys. And now the difference between calling and just slapping is that it's not just like he just triggers them necessarily, unless maybe that is what calling is. It's a certain form of slapping. I don't know. But it isn't that he necessarily triggers them. He basically, it's like, does anybody have anything for this? Maybe one thing that you could do is you go trigger the conditions. You trigger the ifs of of the its that you may need. So I'm the Aj it. So my thing is, if the system is challenged, find justification and give it. All right. So someone says, "Why do you believe that?" Or someone does. It seems skeptical. Okay. So that skepticism, perceived by those facial features and so on, gets processed, ultimately slaps the it of, if skepticism is expressed, then give justifications. Okay. So the algit, if skepticism express, give justification, then give justifications. That's the agit. If the agit is triggered, then to get good justifications, it has to go trigger maybe an intermediate it, right? Like to go. All right, let's work backwards. So we have the agit, and then at the end of the line, the one that delivers is like the if blank, then share this number, state this fact. It can't be if question, then state this fact. That can't be how it's wired. Because then every time you're questioned, every fact that you know would come out, right? So there has to be this intermediate process. Or maybe like what it is when you're challenged there about a certain belief, then the its surrounding that belief are the ones that are ticked, primed. And then when the agit in that belief office gets ticked, then he just, or gets slapped, then he just slaps the nearby ones. That's a possibility too. Okay. Or I say two, but I think that's the only possibility I've just come up with. But there's something else we were working on, and if we're not in haterist mode, then that may have been another interesting piece. That was a weird thing that I said, but we're gonna move on. What were we talking about? Why did we do all of that? Yes, the call mechanism. So we don't really know exactly how the call mechanism works. How does a neuron or a neuronal system not trigger certain neuronal systems, but only trigger the ones that are relevant? And that could just be the ones that are next to it, but I don't know. Anyway, that wasn't even the point, though. So we just spent some time on that. In that video of the call there was also, we talked about the spill. So the video is called the call and spill mechanisms. So the call its and spill its. Well, no, it's not a mechanism spill. It's just a tendency. It's just an event that happens. I guess you can describe it as a mechanism. Sort of, it's hard to formulate it as an if then, because it's not at all sort of. Actually, you could phrase it like this: if validation, then validation. So if validation of A, then validation of B. That's how you could phrase the spill mechanism. But it's just kind of a thing that happens just because our brains have so much interconnection, and that those connections aren't perfectly calibrated. So this thing that happens is spillage, which is where a thumbs up given by one it about a certain thing gets sort of extrapolated to another thing. So the halo effect is probably the best thing to say next for you to know what I'm referring to. The halo effect is, basically we have the tendency that if someone is good looking, is smart or whatever, has whatever good quality, and remember that in evolution, the three most important qualities are competence, health, and morality. And health, of course, indicated by beauty, competence indicated by achievement, and morality often indicated by people vouching for you. Those are sort of the shortcuts we use for those things, I think. I guess there are other shortcuts. But anyway, the important one and the one that I'm confident in is beauty is definitely a shortcut to assessing the health of someone else. Okay, so we don't like people who are ugly because that indicates bad health. We don't like people who are dumb or who don't have achievements because that indicates incompetence, which is not good for a tribe because then you're just using our resources. And it's fine. We're happy to take care of some incompetent people. But we're not going to really maybe respect them or love them or... No, that's not true. It's not, we're not going to love them. Anyway, okay. And then the third thing is morality, trustworthiness, or whatever. And I feel like I was able to think of 3 C's for this, or whoever I read this from came up with 3 C's for this. Competence. Anyway. So sometimes one of those is high, such as health, indicated by beauty. So if the person is beautiful, then we will sometimes sort of assume by no rational process that they are the other things. And I think that's just a spill thing. I don't think that we evolved to actually like do that, because I don't think that was ever a rational move to make, to say that because this person is more attractive, I should trust them more. I think it's just a spill thing. I think that it's just an energy economy thing. I think that the brain doesn't keep a super complicated, nuanced ledger. So if one it went in there and put a thumbs up stamp or a stamp of approval on that person, then when another it comes in, who's supposed to be evaluating the person's intelligence, they're going to save time and just look at what that other it say. What's been said about this person? Okay, stamp of approval, huh? You see, 10 minutes earlier, it was the beauty it or the health beauty it that had come in and stamped it. Now the intelligence it, or the morality it, they're looking. I'm underfunded. I mean, I could maybe investigate this person's intelligence, but my department is so underfunded. They already have a thumbs up. I don't know what it's for, but they already have a thumbs up in here. So I'm just going to go back to my office and tell them this person's been approved, so we don't have to do all that work. And that's sort of how it spills over, how the validation from one department spilled over into the other. All right. Hopefully this is actually going to be related. So here's what I've always been frustrated in my life. And you know what? These ideas are good enough where you can shut the fuck up and just listen and just, blah, blah. And you know what, by the way, if someone's looking at their phone while I'm talking, that's okay. I certainly don't want you guys to be distracted by distractions, or by the fact of being distracted, I mean. And maybe none of this is worthwhile, but be honest. If you guys don't want to keep this on, you guys want to put on some music or whatever and dance, and you don't want to keep this on, that's okay. But hopefully one of you wants to go in the corner and continue watching what Eris has to say, and how it starts to make less and less sense the more that that wasn't much. Because I didn't want to tilt my head back. I wanted to keep eye contact. I think I failed, though, because I was looking at the green dot. Did it look like I was looking at you? Right now I'm looking at you. Now I'm looking at the green dot. All right, bro. I've been frustrated in my life when I'm having a conversation with people. Look, we're going to first of all put a couple things out there. I've said enough that I don't know that I'm right about anything. Okay. We're going to put all that. We know all of that. All that preface. We know all of that. Okay. So for the purpose of what I'm going to say, it does sort of assume that I'm the one who is right and knew things. Okay. But that may not be the case. And that's okay. That is known in this shit system. Okay. So there'd be times that I'd be having a conversation, that preface noted, and people it would seem like that's the last time I'm going to do that, because I just want to focus on what it seemed like rather than continuously saying that it seemed like this and that I'm humble. It seemed like someone would say something, and that it would come from a specific it in their sit stem, and it would deliver. A statement would be made. I felt like, gosh, it's hard to do it without prefacing, because maybe I'm the one who actually slipped. But you know what? In order for me it's just about explaining the term, okay? It's not about tooting my own horn. All right, so then we'll switch it around. Very good, you're right. Sometimes when people are having a conversation with me, it will deliver. I will say a thing, make a statement, and then which will slap an it with them, a rebuttal it, a rebuttal, and they will rebut. And then I will, and then another it of mine will deliver. Not a rebut from their rebut, not even an it related to the first it, just another it will come out. Sometimes people think it's because all I'm doing is thinking about what I want to say next. And so I've got a queue of things. And then regardless of what that person says, the next it in line comes out. And that may be true sometimes. But another thing that happens is that I hear something that was said and I don't stick to it because of how unnuanced my its are, my sit stem is. They say something that slaps in it here because of sort of spillage, and then my new it delivers without me even realizing the it relevance, the irrelevance, the unirrelevance. And I want to. It's really, we're gonna call it a slip, and it happens often in conversations, and that's how I've always sort of imagined it, as a slip. It's like we're talking about. So we're gonna switch back now. I'm talking about something with someone, and like I thought we were gonna talk about, like they said something. I'm responding to that thing. Now you need to respond to my response to that thing. Let's keep talking about this thing we're talking about. Let's try to make some progress with it. And then you just give me another thing. And it's another wrong thing. There's nothing to do with this thing. And so now I got to go, all right, but can we stick with that one? Because I have a response for that. And then you give me another thing, and it just keeps slipping. You keep slipping out of my grasp. Keep slipping under the table, slipping to another table. It's like a game of magical chairs or some bullshit. Very frustrating. You'll say something is true. I will respond to that thing. You need to tell me more about how this thing is true, or how, despite my accusation that it's still true. What are you doing moving on to another thing? So anyway, I want to, so I don't want to be upset with you. So I want to explain it with these slips, these little slides that happen in debates or in discussions where you can never stay on one thing. There's always a new thing introduced. Oh, by the way, great. Oh, this isn't even short. So if you're watching this, then you probably are happy to watch the other thing. Make an evening of it, the two of them. Watch them in the right order, though. All right, here we go. To cook. Okay? Something like that. Latin, it's the name of a bias, which is just a maladaptive voice, a tendency that we have, which is, but you too. And what often happens in conversations is that if someone says something to me, I'm speaking generally, but if someone says something to me, accuses me maybe of something, I'll shoot it back. Oh, you're one to talk. Oh, like that's like calling the pod the black whatever. Oh wow, maybe first you should oh, didn't just yesterday you everybody has that it in them. Someone accuses us of something. The processing of that accusation, even without the motivation of wanting to send it back to them, just the natural effect of spilling. When I hear this accusation, that accusation is associated with their own behavior. Because I saw they did something sort of loosely related to the thing that they're saying. So anyway, and hypocrisy, yes, obviously is super valued in the brain. So as soon as we can identify hypocrisy, we're like, oh, great. When we we love to use hypocrisy. In any case, but beyond that, beyond the motivated stuff of trying to take the other person down, there's also just a simple, natural, amoral, or harm, whatever, a tendency of spillage happening, so that a word that you said evoked things for me relevant to what I had said last year, what I was doing, but also evoked some things relevant to you, and not relevant at all to what we're talking about right now, but relevant to your own behavior. So through spillage, those two things come to mind. Then it's through the motivation of self-protection and so on that other thing gets chosen for delivery, rather than the things that related to the issue or to my own possibly fautif behavior. Bro, that's not bad. Sit stem, alternate map, reconcile it, slip.